Alright guys, tonight, hope that's a little bit wet for hunting, we are going to be doing a fish taco. And so the first thing I'm going to do, I've already fired up my grill and we're going to do corn in just a second, but I'm going to hone my knife before I cut anything, and I do this every single time. Again, you can go out, you can go in. I tend to go in, and when I come in, and I think I mentioned this before and I hope I did, is that my movement when I'm honing the knife is outward. Right? And so the blade comes closer, the tip comes closer to me, but as it's doing that, it's moving outward, not just straight down towards my fingers like that, right? So that gives me plenty of control. And I'm trying to match the angle of the tip of the blade, right? I want to guide it into that sharp one. I saw somebody trying to do it like perpendicular like this, right? Coming down. That's not going to do it, sorry. And you can feel, again, we talked about this in the other video, but you can feel if you go, don't go this way, but go this way to test if it's sharp. It should start to grip your fingers quite a bit. Don't be too focused on like the measurements and all that. I'm not going to be really using any. So first I'm going to take my onion because I want to start to get it caramelized, and it's going to take a bit of time to do that. So I'm going to start heating up my pan and kind of just like close to low. I'm going to be using avocado oil because if you use olive oil, and I know a lot of chefs tell you to do that, the olive oil, it has a very low flash point and it reacts a lot more to oxygen, which makes it a little bit more carcinogenic, as well as like really it's going to upset your system. And I'm going to know kind of when my oil is going to be hot enough for me to start using, because it's going to start, you see right now it's kind of barely moving around the pan. It doesn't want to go much of anywhere. It's going to get a really kind of watery viscosity, and if you start smelling the oil, then it's too hot, right? So I cut off the end here, and I want to use actually long pieces for this one. I'm not going to do rings, so I'm just going to cut right down the middle. Notice that, you know, here's the root ball. You got to see all those little roots coming out of there. I'm going to cut through that, and I'm going to try to keep that intact because it's going to hold my onion together. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to peel off as many layers as I need to until I get to nice, very clean flesh here. So you see this is still kind of a little bit grody, so I'm going to go down one more layer. Boom. I don't need a whole lot of these. So now, again, my thumb's going to be behind and my knuckles should be further out than my tips, right? And turn that so I don't run into it, right? And so I'm just going to guide myself down. And I'm just retracting my hand while kind of pushing a little bit at the end there. And now, I got those nice and beautiful. Didn't cut myself, didn't have to struggle too much. Didn't spend so much time that I got onion in my eye or anything like that. So we're nice and clean here, right? So we got that going. Now, we're going to talk about a corn. Back in the day, when I grew up, when we did corn, we would always rip off all the husks and then we boil it. Instead, I'm going to rip off, you know, kind of most of the husk here, just like that. But I'm going to leave it on because this is going to trap moisture, and the husk is going to add flavor to my corn once it's done. So, I pull these back until I'm just down to very thin layers, and then these are just going to go right on the grill. And I'm not going to boil them because, again, boiling it is going to take away flavor, and it's also going to put more moisture into the corn, but this is going to hold the original moisture in. So that's going to be enough for this to be nice, juicy, and then even more flavorful. It has got a little bit more of that natural corn flavor. So I'm going to go throw these on the grill, and I will be right back for the next part. So my corn's on the grill. I'm checking my oil. Still a little bit thick. So I'm not going to be ready to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move on to starting my breading for this. So generally speaking, I'm going to put a little bit of a milk bath here, right? And I'm going to follow up that milk bath with cornstarch. Okay? And this, by doing it this way, you're kind of getting it to stick better than if you were to just do like a mixture of egg and milk and then just go right into the flour. So we're going to do a little bit of that, and then I'm going to take my eggs. Now to open up the eggs kind of the pro way is I'm Gonna go onto the counter. I'm not gonna go on the edge because that's gonna break too much of the membrane. You're more likely to get eggshell into your whatever you're doing. And I'm just gonna grip the solid parts here and hopefully a little bit of the looser parts, and I'm just gonna spread my fingers apart, right? And I can do that with both hands, boom, and not a single bit of eggshell in there. Now when you're whisking stuff, you don't want to be going back and forth. You actually want to be kind of making a circle so that you're guiding it to spin around, right? And you want to get it so that there's no independence between any of it, right? You want to get it kind of so that it's one solid liquid mass, not mass, we're not adding here, okay? So you see that it's not coming up in parts. I can't distinguish between the whites and the yolks, right? So this is going to be one of our primary binding agents here. Now we're going to go into our last stage here. And I'm going to take some flour, and this is just all-purpose flour. We don't want to be using like a whole wheat flour because it's not going to bind on nearly as well. So here we go. Boom. All right. So flour's there. I'm going to check my oil real quick. It's kind of getting there. I'm going to go a little bit warmer with this, actually. And so now, for salt, I don't usually put salt in early on things, but for this it's going to be more integrated. So I'm going to take this, and I've got a little open blister over here, so that's going to suck if it gets on there. But you see, I'm using like maybe a half teaspoon, okay? I'm not going overboard on the salt. I can always add more later, and I know a lot of chefs are going to give me shit for that. But the thing is that I can always add salt later, and most food, especially in restaurants, is going to be too much sodium. So this was smoked paprika I threw in there. I'm going to throw in some Italian seasoning. I'm going to take a grinder and grind down some peppercorns. And I like the fresh peppercorns better. And to give it a little bit more bite, I'm also going to add in white peppercorns on top of this. Private conversations walking through the door. Woo! A little bit of white pepper here. Alright. That was a bit much, so it's going to be a little bit extra bitey. I'm generally going to prefer granulated garlic, but chopped, but this is going to be what I've got right now. Oh, I'm not on fire out there, good. And then garlic. Okay? And you see I'm not measuring, don't care. I'm just going to give that a quick mix around. Fork would probably be better, but whatever. Okay. So for the fish on these fish tacos, we're going to be using sole. The reason we're using sole is because it's wild caught. It's not farmed. And I want you to look at this oil, hopefully you can see it there, but you see how it's kind of really runny in there? It's actually looking a little bit more translucent, especially when you compare it to that. So that's just about ready for us to toss our onions in. And I'm keeping my onions on kind of a medium to medium low because I want them to get nice and crispy here. So that's going to take time. If you do it too fast, they're just going to be oily. So I'm just going to drop those in there. I'm going to get my cutting board out of the way. And you see, I've actually turned this one on to a true medium to medium high. This fish is not particularly thick, so I don't have to worry too much about it, not being cooked all the way through. So you could use tilapia, which is basically the same thing. And I'm just going to drop this in here into the milk and keep it nice. Get a little bit wet there. All right. Oh, that's a nice fillet. Whoop. So now I'm going to move it over to my cornstarch. Get a nice little breading going on there. And this is why you wear black pants, now that they're black and white. Now, technically speaking, I should be using one hand for liquids, one hand for dries, but I don't mind that I get a little bit muddy here. I need more cornstarch. Okay. Doop. Here, move those around just a little bit because I want one little layer there, is that this oil, it's got that viscosity. I'm starting to see a little bit of smoke coming up, so I really want to make sure I get this in. So here we go. Right. Yeah, I've got that too in there, and I'm not crowding that pan. Really what we're looking for with what's going on in the pan here is we're looking for it to become kind of golden brown. And it's not going to take too long. And I really should have a landing place for this to go. So what we're looking at here is that we've got this nice and golden brown. It's really kind of crispy here, so that's kind of that mix of like the cornstarch and then the flour and all that. And you can see like all those little pieces of onion there. That's be very flavorful there. And I think this is probably going to be, this one and the next one. That one's a little overdone. That might be a little hot here. So we got one more flame. I think that's going to be enough for Jet and I for tonight. Our onions are starting to look a little bit glossy. I'm going to try to flip them here. That's getting pretty close there. So you see we're kind of getting all browned all the way around. I could probably actually take this off at about this point. Alright, so we got our husks off, and since we're not eating on the cob, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off. And I'm using a bowl because when I just did it a second ago, it went all over the place. And that was funny. Alright, so when it comes to tortillas, these are store-bought. And when I'm looking at them, I'm trying to get something that has very few ingredients to it. So these are corn tortillas. I kind of like the smell and the flavor of them better. And I'm just going to put them here on kind of a medium to medium low here. Just to kind of heat them up a little bit. Now, again, my knife does need a little bit more sharpening, but again, when I'm trying to go through like a lot of round things like this, I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on the top here. I'm going to come close to the edge. And if I've got a really sharp knife, this shouldn't take any effort. This one is fairly sharp, but you see I'm still struggling there, so I'm just going to flip it over and start over. Especially with tomatoes, like these are like the grand test on how sharp is your knife, really. If it's dull, and this is the only one I can do this with, that's not going to go through. Alright, so my other fillings that I have over here is I'm using spinach and arugula right over here. We've got our corn right there. I'm going to go ahead and throw these in with the corn. And then we're going to use guac. And so same thing with the guac. I'll bring it over here. This is just the Costco chunky guacamole. But when we look through the ingredients here, again, there's nothing that I don't recognize there. So it's, you don't have to get that close. But yeah, it's just basically tomatoes and avocados and that type of thing. So there's not a whole lot of filler stuff in there. So this has just been a couple seconds. I'm going to put those over. Oh, those are pretty good. Look at how nice and caramelized those are. Yeah, so we've got them. We don't really want them much darker than that. I'm going to pull that off. There we go. So now I've got these guys up. Arugula, that's going to give it kind of a peppery bite, a little bit of spinach. I'm not a huge fan of putting lettuce on pretty much anything. And before I do that, I'm going to go put on the guac. I'm just going to slather a little bit of that on. Doesn't have to be a lot. It's just a little bit for flavor. And if you wanted to, you could like squeeze lime juice on this or throw on salsa. It's completely your thing. But, you know, try to keep it to things that you know what's going in there, right? As much as humanly possible. So a little bit of arugula, a little bit of spinach. Okay, these are high nutrient greens. Lettuce is not. And then a few of our tomatoes. Some of our corn. And then from there, we can just kind of throw our fish in, a little bit of the onions. That was hot. Jet had noticed that the fish wasn't quite as well done as we wanted it to, so I just went ahead and I finished it off at 425 in the oven, just for 10 minutes. It's not going to take much. There you go. Just shut that up there. And I'm probably actually going to throw a little bit of sour cream on mine. Jet's not a good fan, so we're not going to do that with his. Oh my gosh, this looks amazing.
I got a new wheel. You might like it.
I feel it. It's looming over me. Ah! I think I'm going to let Jet have the final word on these.
No.
I don't have real limes right now, so I'm just going to sprinkle just a little bit of lime juice on there.
You just like this brand, that's it.
Whoop! That one's gonna be very sour. Alright. And whatever your preferred hot sauce is.
All right, it's time to test it.
Don't oversell it.
It's perfect. Juicy fish, greenish of the alegra, and the corn and tomato. I like it.